I will be presenting on health concerns related to elderly living alone. So some statistics, according to the Institute on Aging, as of 2010, nearly one-third of individuals lived alone outside of a nursing home or in a hospital. There was also 72% of older men who lived with a spouse, but only 42% of older women did. Among women aged 75 plus, almost half lived alone in 2010. By 2030, it is expected that 20% of the population will be older than 65 years old due to the baby boomers reaching this age. And by 2050, the 85 plus group will account for 24% of older adults. Now, with the elderly, women are more likely to live alone due to men having a younger lifespan. Men tend to live to be 79, while women tend to live to be 85. And living arrangements differ by race and ethnicity, whereas Hispanic and white women and black women, they're more likely than other women of other races to live alone. Now, the size of this population, for the state of Utah, about 8% of Utah population is over 65 years old, according to the 2000 census, compared to the national statistics of 12% of the US population being over 65 years old. And not everyone over 65 lives alone, but the older they are, the more likely they are to live alone, especially if they are women. Internationally, there's been data for 67 countries that indicate that older persons have become more likely in recent decades to live independently. In Northern America and Europe, elderly are more likely to live alone compared to Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Caribbean, where more than half the population of individuals over the age of 60 live with their children. Now, these are cultural differences and religious preferences, and some cultures, they prefer to take care of their parents in their home instead of putting them in a facility or letting them live by themselves. Some contributing factors to social determinants of health are isolation versus social support. Elderly that live alone tend to not have very much support, especially from family who most likely work full-time and have kids of their own that they take care of. When they don't have as much peer support if they live alone because depending on their age, maybe their friends have died already. They also struggle with transportation if they do not have a license anymore, and they might struggle to have family transport them places. And then ageism, they may be stereotyped or discriminated against because of their age and not be involved in as much community outreach because of this. And then depending on their socioeconomic status, they may not have saved up enough retirement or have enough Social Security or disability to pay for an assisted living facility or to have home health care, which isolates them. And they may be technologically illiterate. They may not know how to use a computer or the smartphones that we have today, which puts them at high risk for scams and theft. And they also may have a lot of strangers in the home if they have home health care. They can have different aides or nurses or volunteers coming in their house, which puts them at risk for theft from their home. Some specific concerns, which I've sort of addressed already: socioeconomic, whether they've saved up enough retirement or if they're getting enough state assistance to care for their housing, food, health care. Also with healthcare, do they have transportation to all their appointments? Do they have someone to bring in their prescriptions? And then adherence, are they taking their medications as prescribed? Are they taking them on time, the right dose? Are they taking the medications at all? And then what kind of support system do they have? Do they have a family member who can check on them every day, or a friend who can check on them, or a caregiver? Also, what are their cognitive abilities? Some people can hide that they're forgetting stuff for quite a while if they are not being seen every day. Are they able to take care of themselves, or are they neglecting themselves? Some root causes, which I've briefly mentioned. Do they have enough retirement, or did they have savings? Did they invest? Do they get disability pay? Do they have Social Security or any kind of state funding that is helping them to care for themselves? Some issues include polypharmacy. They could be getting prescriptions from numerous doctors, and then with lack of transportation, are they seeing these doctors? Are they getting all of their medications? Is insurance covering these medications, or do they not take them because they can't afford them? They may have a lot of chronic conditions, and do they have social support or the cognition to care for themselves? Do they have someone helping them? Can they afford the medical bills and the medication for these chronic conditions? Also, these people can be very isolated if they are living alone and don't have transportation. They may not see people every day. So, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is a very individualized case. Many have met their psychological or physiological safety, love, and belonging, depending on how they look back on their life, what they have accomplished. They may have hit their esteem and self actualization. Or if they've had a difficult life, if they feel unfulfilled, if they feel like they haven't reached all of their needs, they may not have met their love and belonging, esteem, or self actualization. They may have safety needs that are unmet. If they were if they didn't save enough retirement, they can't get a job, they don't have access to health care. They may be living on the streets alone because they don't have enough money. So it's a very individualized case on which spot they fall on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some communicable diseases or infections to look for is E. coli. This affects adults, the elderly, and children more often than the rest of the population. Also with Salmonella, this hits elderly more severely than healthy young adults. They are also very susceptible to respiratory infections such as pneumonia and the flu, and they get sick very easily. Some non-communicable diseases. The elderly have a lot of comorbidity. They have high risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. They can have cataracts and just deteriorating eyesight. They can be having hearing loss issues. A lot of concerns of comorbidity are diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and vascular insufficiencies. And this is a lot for an elderly person to take care of on their own if they do not have social support. They cannot access doctors. They don't have access to their pharmacy, transportation. They need help with all of this. Some special concerns for them with self-care. Again, are they adhering to their medication? Are they taking their medication? And can they actually care for themselves? Is there any form of neglect? Are they able to shower themselves, dress themselves, feed themselves? Some risk for harm to themselves or others, by others, are scams and abuse. They have strangers in the house all the time. This leads to theft. They can have family abuse. They can have financial abuse. And this just needs to be looked out for. And that's some concerns for elderly living alone.